All right, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? This way we can get you all moving on this next project. Hope you enjoyed the last one. A little bit of a challenge, hopefully, trying to figure out like how to actually do that, how to make something out of that site there on this campus there. Um, but we're going to move into now a group project, and then that will be followed with an individual project. I'm going to start off with the brief and go through that. Not take any questions until we get towards the end because there's a couple different presentations. I will present the brief and what the project's about, kind of do an overview. I'll talk about another portion of the project that you'll need to incorporate. And then I guess actually before that, we'll have our subject matter experts for this group project present their presentation and the things that they found out about, all the information that they gathered about the site, and about essentially your client. So let me go ahead and share my screen. We'll get into it a little bit. Again, I don't want to take questions until we get through the presentations because there's things that I'm going to bring up or I'm going to say that maybe won't make a whole lot of sense until we get into sharing the other information. So let's just, I will take questions, just not right away. This way we can kind of get through the material. There's a lot to get through. So hold tight and just pay attention because we got a lot to show you and a lot to share. Everybody see the brief? I just want to make sure it's good. Okay, great. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it. All right. So assignment three, again, this is a group project. It's going to be due April 10th. Wanted to make sure that we kick this off tonight. I know it's right before spring break. However, since it is a group project, you should think about organizing, start getting some thoughts down, start thinking about how you're going to do this project. Then you'll be broken into groups of three, if needed four, but three seems to be kind of the magic number that we found over the years that works. Two is too little, four is too many. But sometimes we have to kind of split the difference, and there may be a group or two in your studio that has four people, but for the majority, it should be three. Okay, so you're going to work as a group to produce a site plan. Oh, that's nice. Site design, nice spelling mistake on my part, and layout for the Wildlife Center of the North Coast, which is near Astoria, Oregon. You might be going, well, why are we doing this? This is in Oregon and we're in Las Vegas. Well, there's a couple of different reasons. One is stewardship. Part of our program and part of what we do as professionals is helping those that may need some help that don't have the funds or don't have the means by which to have a big master plan done or to have a big project done. It's giving back to your community as a professional. And yes, this is in Astoria. However, this is a program that does need some help. They need some insight. They've gotten a little bit from a college, Boston College, last semester, but we'll get into that a bit more and how that relates. But for now, just know that this project is up here in Oregon. And it is something that, again, also introduced to you a different region, a different type of, criteria, a different type of site, something that is different than what you see every single day. So again, being good stewards, being good professionals that you can understand and see and how to design for different sites. Okay. All right. So learning objectives, again, these outcomes are all kind of the same. We're just reinforcing them. Some of them will be more, you'll dive into a bit more as we go through this group project. You'll dive into a bit more of these as we go into the individual project. Okay. So they all still sort of apply. Again, not every single word or every single little thing, but there are things that are covered here in most of these. And as we move into the individual project as well. Okay, so skills. What are you practicing? What are you doing? Again, we're focusing on hand drawing with digital media. This does not mean 3D models. This means generating things by hand and throwing them in, let's say, Photoshop or Illustrator, being able to organize things, being able to put together a holistic presentation. You got to understand what a section is. You got to understand what an elevation is. Yes, I know 3D modeling is exciting, young in your profession. I know that AI is the most wonderfulest thing ever, but you still have to know and have the knowledge behind what you are putting out there. You have to be able to understand that what you put in the computer is the right thing. Okay. So it's not as good. The computer's not as good until you tell it what to do. So at least I guess at this point, I guess someone could tell me I'm different, but at this point, this is what we're doing. Okay. You got to understand the basics before you can jump into something that is going to try to solve all of your problems. You got to understand these basic things. Continue developing time management skills. Hopefully you're all getting kind of used to this, right? What are the things I'm good at? What are the things I need to work on? What are the things I should be asking my professors and instructors about? Hey, I could use some help with hand drawing. Hey, I could use some help with this or that. Let us know so that we can help you so that you can get better, quicker, faster. Okay. Continue understanding the design process. This is also applies to this group project. You need to understand the background, the backbone of what you're putting out there. You're setting yourselves up for your individual projects. Okay, so again, this is about a large group project. It's a very large site. This is more about a master plan, kind of a site development plan. And we'll talk, and I'll show an example or two what that means. So let's get through. Let's just keep going. Introduction to working as a group. When you get into the profession, you work as a group. Very few times, as Deborah even said during our upper division, during her presentation about applying to upper division. Very few times are you not working with someone else. You have to rely on others who know more about, let's say, hydrology than you do, or structural engineering than you do. You have to combine those things. You have to be able to assess and understand those things, but you are 99% of the time working in a group. Okay. So again, we're introducing you to this sort of dynamic, and it's going to happen more and more as you go through school, and especially when you get into the practice. Project management, scheduling, and completion of individual groups and tasks. So yeah, you're going to be in a group. So you're going to have to figure out how to get this thing done. Somebody may focus on getting this pulled together, this information. Someone else might focus on gathering this information. How are you going to put it all together? Right? You've got to understand and learn how to do that, be able to divide work, but again, put it back together holistically. All right, so what are you actually doing? Well, you're going to review all the materials located in this Google Drive folder. We have set up a folder that's got a bunch of information in there. There's going to be a presentation in there. There's some other stuff that I'm going to go through that's in there. There's some materials about the site, about this group that you'll learn about. So make sure that you're going to that folder. And if you need to, those that were from your studio that came up here for the site visit, they're your subject matter experts. We call those in the profession SMEs. Those are the people that know about this site, that know about this, let's say, our client. So if you don't understand something or you're not sure of something, you should be able to ask them. And that doesn't mean if they're not in your group, you can't ask them. It means anyone can ask them at any time. Now, should you rely on them for every single little thing? No, but again, I'm not sure about this bird thing. What was that thing that they did over here? Or what was this building for? They can help you out, those kinds of questions. They're not doing the work for you. Okay. All right. Let's see. Using the existing site, provide a comprehensive layout incorporating the wildlife center's needs. Well, that's a pretty big thing, right? We've got to look at comprehensively the whole site. Again, what are the things that they need? And how are you going to get there? You might ask, well, how do I even know what they need? I don't know what this place is. Well, that's why you have SMEs. That's why you have the Google Drive folder. And that's why you're going to learn about this so that you understand their needs, not only now, but in the future. Right. So again, you're sort of programming this. You're figuring out what they have, what works, what doesn't. What are we going to do? What are we going to provide for them as they go into the future? Okay. So there's a lot there that you have to sort of think about and read up on. Right. So I just kind of said the next sentence. Consider what they currently have and what's needed for future growth. Analyze the provided program list. There is a list that the SMEs put together. There's also, I think that list was probably modified or added to depending on what the actual client needs are. Okay. So there's going to be a list there of some stuff that we need to sort of assess through. And you're going to see, like, does this apply? What can we add to it? Again, how do we put these things on the site and where should they go? let's see, consider each user type that may visit the site and what accommodations are needed. So again, you might ask the question, well, what's a user type? Well, basically anyone who comes to the site. What are they doing? Why are they there? What is the actual reason for this center? What do they do? And what maybe could they possibly do more of? And again, you're going to learn about that through these couple of presentations and then the information that you're going to find in the Google Drive folder. You're going to also another layer of this, which is really not apparent out there at this site, or even in the past work that a different school has done, is this layer of universal design. And what that is above and beyond ADA. And I'm going to give a kind of a short presentation. And there is a PDF in the Google Drive folder talking about universal design and some examples. But I'm going to go through it a bit tonight. It's above and beyond the ADA. Okay, so we'll walk through that. But basically, is that any user of any type can use the site or be a visitor to the site. So who am I talking about? Anybody got an example? What individuals am I talking about? If I'm saying above ADA, what am I talking about?
People with mobility issues and hearing issues and vision issues.
Yes, exactly. Right. Any of that. So even those who you may not see the disability. I have one, and you probably all can't even see it. You wouldn't even know it. There are folks that have disabilities that are invisible disabilities. So how do we design for that? You can't. It's difficult, right? It is a challenge, but you have to be able to understand how to design for everyone. Okay. And again, we're going to get into that a little bit. What are you going to do? What do you actually have to produce? Well, you need to produce a list of spaces and uses for the site. So again, program, right? What are the spaces that are out there? What do they need for the future? And what are those things and what do they do? Okay. And there are things that you can add, but you need to think about the user groups or the user types that are going out to this site. And again, you're gonna learn a bit more about what that is. You're going to make a design, sort of a layout and illustration of the entire property, the entire area, and you're going to identify the placement of structures, circulation for pedestrians and vehicles, existing natural features, etc. There's a lot out there. It doesn't mean that's all that should be out there. It doesn't mean that you are designing each individual thing. You are just identifying where these things go, okay, and how people get to it, go through it, see it, any of that stuff, okay. You're going to make a physical model, a scaled physical model. Now, I'm not sure exactly what this scale should be. So you are all going to have to figure that out. But the model cannot be any less than 2 feet in any direction. So you need to figure out per scale what that means. I'm saying, okay, 24 inches in any length. So that means the scale has to be somehow the model has to be larger than that. What that scale is, I don't know. Figure it out. Your group, you should be able to figure this out. Let's see, what else? And make sure once you determine that, review it with your instructor. You should be talking through all these things that you're coming up with. And remember, always, always, labels, annotations, dimensions, north arrow, graphic scale, all of these things should be on these materials. All right, so what does it mean once we make all this stuff? What are we doing with it, right? Well, you're gonna make an 11 by 17 slide deck, basically a presentation. It is like a one PDF of multiple sheets, 11 by 17, that has this information on there. So you're gonna have, and when you present it, let's talk about that really quick. When you present it, each of you should speak at least a part of it, talk about a part of it, and present, part of this slide deck. How many pages? I don't know. Not sure. It's up to the group to figure that out. You're going to upload a PDF of the slide deck to Web Campus and the Google Drive folder by the due date. Now, what should be on these slides? Well, at least a list of spaces. At least this site design, this layout, this illustration. You have a model, so you should have some pictures of that model. And what else? Well, what are the things that you can sprinkle in there that are going to be included on your site? Are there other trails? Are there other parking areas? Are there other uses? how do you connect this facility to the community? Astoria, you'll find out, is about 20 minutes away from this site. Is there something that you could do that the community can be more aware of it and maybe actually use it? Think about all this background stuff that could connect to this project. And your instructor should be able to help you kind of talk through a larger, bigger picture. And again, sort of the basis of why not only this facility should exist and what could be included in this facility. Okay. I'm saying a lot of things right now that may not make a whole lot of sense. I get that, but that's because you don't really know the site yet and you don't really know what's out there yet. So, with that, I think who's going to start the presentation for tonight about the site?
Evan is going to screen share for us, and I'm going to start the first couple of slides.
Okay, so why don't we do that? I'll talk about universal design a little bit, and then we'll take questions. So I've made sure that multiple users could share, so it should be good.
Look good with everyone?
Yep, perfect.
Sweet.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea, and I'm going to start us off with our presentation tonight on the Wildlife Center of the North Coast. I do want to just start off by saying that this will be in the Google Drive, as well as any of the links that we have at the end of the presentation, too.
Do we know who all the SMEs were that came up?
Yes. So I just don't know all of their studios, so I apologize. So Evan Phillips is one of our SMEs. Emily Wynn is one of ours. Micah, is it Smith? I totally just lost your last name. And then Trey Hayes, as well as Lisa Diener.
Okay, great.
Cool. Evan, if you'll do the next slide. So a little bit about the Wildlife Center of North Coast. It was started in 1997 by Charnel Fee. WCNC rescues and rehabilitates injured, sick, orphaned, and displaced native wildlife, releasing healthy, strong creatures back into their appropriate habitats while specializing in seabirds. They are the only wildlife care hospital in the region and serve communities along the central and northern Oregon coast, and they care for more than 1,000 animals each year. In addition, they offer wildlife conservation education programs to the community in the form of summer camps, school field trips, ambassador animal programs, and the operation of the Wildlife Emergency Hotline. Unfortunately, Charnel passed away in September of 2015, and she'll always be missed, but her legacy lives on as through all of the work at WCNC. And if you'll hit the next one for me. So just a little brief overview about the property. The site sits on 105 acres. Signage and wayfinding are major issues across the site. You'll kind of see that throughout the presentation as well as the photos that we've uploaded. A trail around the property is still needed to connect the bird blinds, nesting boxes, and trails to the wetlands viewing area. And the property operates on 2 septic systems, one serving the visitor center and one serving the clinic. And so now I'm going to pass it over to Lisa, and she's going to talk about the next couple of slides.
Hi, everyone. What we see here is a map, aerial map. It's a site map showing the main buildings on the grounds, how things are laid out currently. And to make sense of this layout, we have to understand that the center began with just one building, one trailer really, about 20 years ago, and they expanded and they built as needed, piece by piece as their funds allowed. So today, most of these structures are decaying from the wet weather up there, and they also need new updates to things, and they have a new wish list, and we want to make it nice for universal design purposes as well. But the request I heard over and over from the staff was needing clear signage around the site. It's not clear to people that the center is private. Oh, I see a hand.
That's just me. I just wanted to point out that on here, it says future educational area. I would not take that as it has to be. That's just this is just a general sort of map thing, but that again, you all in your groups, you're deciding where these things go. Again, there's things that you're going to add to here once you understand a bit more about the center, what they're trying to do. But that thing that says future educational area, that is not set in stone. Don't think that it has to be there. So,
Gotcha.
and the other, because if I'm not mistaken, that future flight enclosure, that's more of a they want another one, but it's not exactly it has to be there.
Oh,
That's
okay.
So
actually, no, they
They
are.
s-
They're
is that
doing it
one?
this
they said
summer.
it was planned for
They
there.
are
Yeah.
this summer. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. Yep,
Yeah.
got it.
And the
Good.
educational area is just kind of their, that was their idea. But
Yeah.
you're right, not set in stone. That was just their suggestion.
In other words, it's a programmatic, element that everyone should consider, like where this might go. But you're going to get kind of the background of why it's even suggested as we go through this.
Okay, so again, it's not clear to people that the center is private and by appointment only. And even then, people will accidentally drive down the wrong driveway at the fork in the road up there at the upper left corner of the map. And they end up parking at the neighbor's house, which is a private home down the road. Or some people park at the clinic thinking it's the office or vice versa. So the signs aren't clear and people get lost. And this is also a rehab and drop-off facility for ailing wildlife. And they really want drop-off signage and contact information, instructions, things of that nature. Wayfinding is missing and important, just FYI. And they also want signage for drop-offs in the middle of the night for ailing animals. Okay, next slide. The animal enclosures. The facility currently has two large flight enclosures, which you saw on that map, the long things in pink. And then plans to build the third flight enclosure this year for additional animals and birds that they hope to get. They're going to build that this summer. It's adjacent to the existing two. And the other animal enclosures, the ambassador enclosures, have functional vestibules, little entrances for the rehabilitators that bring them in quietly to the interiors to not, startle the birds, and it helps the rehabilitators. You'll see them in the photos. Because of the significant expense and labor invested by the team, there are no plans to replace Cormie's special water enclosure, and you'll see photos of that too. They spend a lot of time creating that themselves, and we want to keep it as is. We just want to we want to enhance it and add things to it. Okay, next slide. Construction materials are important to them. Right now, their wish is what they like about their current updates are corrugated metal framing to the structures at the base, which some of the enclosures are old and are wood framed, and they just sit in the wet ground and rot quickly. So they've found that this corrugated metal siding has been very helpful to them, and it was donated by a local farmer, which is a bonus. So they got that for free, and they love it. They love it. Also, vinyl coated wire mesh they found is really nice for the enclosures and for the birds. And pressure treated wood, obviously. That's kind of a pretty basic construction material, I think, but that helps with the weathering of the wood up there. The team emphasizes the importance of reusable and repurposed materials and requires a secure storage space for building materials. Yes, so the clinic team really emphasized inexpensive materials, simple to find. They even said that they would love things from big box stores, nothing fancy, nothing highly engineered or anything, just easy to grab, cheap if possible. Someone can run to Home Depot and grab something, right? They love that kind of ease of use and simplicity and efficiency and thriftiness, really. And then they need, of course, a secure storage space to store these spare items. That's it. Next slide. I don't know who's up yet. Who's up next?
And then moving on to
Emily.
other features that we found on the site is most importantly the visitor center, which is the starting point for a lot of the guests and all the tours that they have. And it also currently functions as their education building and their gathering pavilion for when they have camps in the summer. And the building also experiences like frequent power outages. It doesn't have a backup system. The building is pretty old, so there are some improvements that can be made, and it's definitely not set in stone. It doesn't have to be their education building. It doesn't have to be their gathering pavilion, but they definitely want to keep some sort of main visitor center. And then there's also the clinic, which during the summer, the facility cares for around 30 more patients at a time. And this also does not include all the ducklings that they receive during the summer. So it can be anywhere from like 100 to 150. And the clinic is pretty small. There are some updates that could also be made, but right now it serves their purpose pretty well. And it fits all of their employees and the amount of volunteers that they have. They have around 35 volunteers per week, especially during the busy season, and around 50 volunteer shifts. And additionally, there's no drop-off signage at the clinic. So a lot of visitors might get lost or they miss the clinic and they end up going the wrong way and they're unable to drop off animals that are in need of rehabilitation, especially at night. And then next slide. And then there's also the barn and education area. They really want to focus on being able to educate kids, especially like students from like, first to like 8th grade and high school. Right now, they have on average like 20 to 30-ish students for each camp and each grade level. And the 1st to 3rd grade group, I believe, is the most popular. And they currently use their barn as their educational space, which is located towards the outdoor end of the site. But, there's obviously some noise issues and it can disturb some of the animals if they get too close to the animal enclosures. And also the barn currently serves as, part of their storage because they don't have space to put a lot of their stuff. So sometimes it pushes their summer camps away from the education center and it's not really ideal for their current needs right now. And then next slide. So some things to consider is that the entire site has no exterior lighting, which results in a very dark area at night. If you guys are considering on adding lighting, you should focus on areas where signage is, where the clinic is, and also minimizing light pollution for the animals. So trying to keep a lot of the lighting away from the center of the site or making sure that there's not too much. And another thing to consider is that there is a lack of parking. Parking is mainly only for volunteers and the workers there. But if you were to add parking, you should consider adding it towards the outside of the site to keep it away from the animals and also to encourage visitors to come onto the site and explore the wildlife center. And then another thing to note is that there's an out of service spigot outside of the visitor center, which could be repurposed or removed or repaired. And then there's also deer that frequently roam the site throughout the day. And overall, the Wildlife Center is looking to create a more welcoming and visually inviting entrance and drive higher foot traffic without disturbing the animals and potentially allowing them to open themselves to the public. And then next slide. And then that's all we have for you guys. Any notes that we have are also listed in the Google Drive, and we have a bunch of links at the end of this presentation, which you can find in the Google Drive. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, group. So I just want to reiterate a few things here. So let's think about this. Why were septic tanks brought up? Well, the fact is, they're out in this sort of wildlife area, right? There's not a lot of infrastructure there. So your group or individuals might think about, well, what things might they need to be sustainable? Let's say if their power goes out, if they want to put in a trail that people can go in and around the site, what might they need? Are we going to have a full deluxe fancy bathroom? Probably not. But should we have one? Where should it be? Where should people who come onto the site to visit the site to see maybe sort of more the natural area, where should they park? Where should they be allowed to go, not go? So think about these things again. I think it came through in the presentation, but this is not meant to be some big fancy operation. This is meant to really think about, even one of the trainers, she built the canopy structure thing that you'll see in some of the photos. She built it herself and has no building experience or anything. Figured out on YouTube how to make a water filtration system for the pool for Cormy, the bird. I mean, these are folks that are doing this by themselves, trying to make this thing work and function. So this is not meant to be some fancy, big architectural, fancy design thing. This is meant to really think about the client and their needs. There was also mention about local farmer that donated materials. So again, think about simplicity in that. Think about relationships with the neighbors, right? Who are the local farmers? What do they do? What are they producing? Is there a byproduct that they have that this facility could use? What if there is I don't know, strawberry farm nearby? And oh, by the way, one of the bird types loves strawberries. I don't know. I'm just making that up. They were also talked about having a program where they might grow food on site for the birds. Well, you need lettuce, maybe cabbage. Those are simple things that you might think about how to incorporate this stuff. So again, this is kind of a grassroots type of effort here to really think about how you can help this facility. And again, we're talking about sort of group, larger overview type of stuff right now. But as you're thinking about this stuff, how do they build relationships with others to then help them support and help themselves? Also, education. They brought the group brought up about how they have groups that come in the summer. Well, where do they go? Where do they sit? Where do they run around? Where do they go that they can have them in a group? You'll also notice in some of the pictures that there's a tank there, a water tank for Cormy. When they built it, they didn't realize at the height of it, a 3-year-old trying to look in there can't see above the actual tank. They can only see below because they have a little bit some glass panels that are actually incorporated into the side of the tank. So how do you bring kids maybe up, right? What does that mean for circulation? Circulation is a huge thing, especially considering ADA accommodations. There is nothing that is ADA compliant on this site whatsoever. Not a single thing. So how do we incorporate these basic things? Wayfinding, that could be someone's project when we get there, just that, because again, there is nothing there. So just want to kind of highlight some of those things as you're thinking about this stuff. And you're going to have to dive in a bit. As a group, you're going to have to look at these photos, ask questions, look at their website. You're going to have to kind of get to know it a bit. So you kind of understand where the group is talking about these things and what that actually means. What does it actually kind of look like? Okay. All right. One more couple of things here. Let me bring up, let's see, I've got a slide deck here for universal design. We'll touch on the topic. And again, this is above and beyond sort of ADA. ADA is kind of minimum, right? We want to make sure that we accommodate that. And what does that mean for this exercise? Well, circulation. Again, where do people park? Where are maybe hard surfaces that people can navigate through or go around the site? As we get further along and you get into the individual, this will also be a bit more important as you dive into sort of more of the detail. But let's touch on the topics that you kind of understand. And I was really happy to hear that someone brought this up already and kind of knew some of the basics. Now, this is the slide deck. It's in the Google Drive folder for you all to access. This was developed over a couple of years. And actually, Isabella, our graduate assistant that we have, she helped put some of this together as well. So I'll touch on this, and there's a lot of links. There's a lot of information here. Again, as you're thinking about the site, as you're thinking about where these things lay out, as you're thinking about, maybe stuff that you might want to explore a little bit as we get into the individual projects that this can help you with. All right, so what is universal design? Well, it's creating an environment that is accessible for all people of all abilities, all sizes, all types, all everything. Again, is it always possible? Probably not, but it should be a goal. Okay, so just consider anyone that you know in your life, or a friend, or cousin, grandmother, anyone who's ever had a mobility issue. You never know. Maybe you play a sport, or you're walking down the stairs, you trip, you break your leg. Well, you now have a mobility issue. It can happen to any of us, okay, at any time, at any point. So again, thinking about these things, it's not just about age. It's not just about because someone's in a wheelchair. It's above and beyond that, okay? So it's not a fad, it's not a trend. Again, this is something that we should consider about. And as we're kind of touching on this topic because I hope that you carry this through, not only through this semester, but also as you go up into upper division, move into masters, and move into the profession. Again, it's not always something that every single project you're going to have the ability to go full out on these things. But again, if we can chip away at it, if we try to incorporate these things, why not design for everybody? Okay. And it's not for them, it's with them. So think about how we incorporate those types of things. You'll see here this image on the right, they call that a stramp. Why? Because there's stairs and a ramp, and they're sort of incorporated. All right. So again, thinking about it as a whole system, not separate pieces that just because I have a ramp, oh, I'm ADA compliant. It's combining it in a very simple way. This is a very simple example of just a little bit of universal design. Okay, so there's some quotes in here. There's some other things. Again, just kind of thinking about accessibility, what that means, inclusive design. You'll hear those kind of topics and things. But again, universal design, so usable by all. You kind of keep that mindset about any of these decisions that you're making as a group, and especially as you get into your individual project, this will kind of help you make sure that you're incorporating this into your project. So again, it goes above and beyond ADA. This is just an example of like a bathroom, but and again, it talks about when ADA was actually written into law. There was a lot of advocacy for this way before this. There were things and events that happened before 1990 that led up to finally this happening. And it was only until someone, a young woman, actually went to DC and got out of her wheelchair and climbed with her arms up the stairs to Capitol Hill. That was a big event, and that finally turned the mindset of Congress, and they finally put this into law. At the time, George Sr. Bush was president, so this is quite a long time ago. Some of you, probably most of you on this call, were not around at this time. I was, and I kind of remember this. Granted, I wasn't that old, but still, I do remember some of it. And again, there's sources here, there's links in here for you to dive into and take a look at. All right, the process. So determining what you are designing using the universal design method. And again, if you at least kind of look through that lens of designing for everyone, any particular thing, any sort of disability, at least if you're trying to incorporate this will help you kind of set the pace for the rest of the project. Some of these you'll be able to do. We don't really have a feedback group or a discussion group. But again, talk to your instructors. They know about these things. I know Chris has had a lot of experience with this, running a professional design studio, coming across projects like this all the time. I know the other instructors have also relevant experience with this. I myself, so we're here to help you kind of incorporate this. Oops. There's 7 principles here. Again, equitable use, flexibility, simple and intuitive, perceptible. So thinking about information, like when you're looking at graphics, high contrast between letters and a background, and a sort of a background color, making sure the fonts are large enough for someone to use. I'm sorry, for someone to read. So I myself, I use 14-point font, and even in my emails, I try to keep it nice and large so that anyone can see it on the screen. So even when you're doing digital presentations, think about that as well. High contrast, large font size, so that anyone can read it. Tolerance for error, so minimize hazards, low physical effort. Again, that kind of gets into sort of more the ADA kind of standard. And then size and space. So again, designing for all. Here's some examples. Just kind of like, again, these are just basic examples that kind of talk about these 1 through 7 items here that back that up. There's goals, body fit, comfort, awareness, understanding, wellness, social integration, personalization, and then cultural appropriateness. So again, thinking about who our client is, they've got a range of people that visit the site. They've got a range of uses for this site. They have a range of needs for the site. There are some people that are coming there because there's an emergency. There's quite a few times I've shared stories when we were there, and even when I've been there on my own, that a bird, they find a bird because it was struck by a car, right? They have an owl that lost an eye because it was left on the road because a car struck it, right? So they've got someone bringing this animal there as an emergency. That's a different use than someone being there to sort of enjoy the site or walk around and learn about the place or learn about the site itself. So there's different uses there. Again, a bit more, just some more examples. This will kind of, again, relate a bit more to your individual project. And some of this stuff may not exactly apply, but again, keeping in mind where some of these things come from and why some of these things that you see out in the wild, right, as you're walking around or driving around, why they're important. There's even examples for designing with autism. Like, how do you do that? Well, again, there's some examples in here, and I think about even at the grade level that even this example shows. And this, again, this is a big school. I'm not saying that this is what you would do for a project, but again, they're just examples. So there's a lot in here to kind of sift through, take a look at it. Again, not everything in here is going to apply, but there are things like this, public art, right? Like thinking about how, if you have art or you have sculpture on the site, you might think about how to integrate some of this. How could it be tactile so that someone understands it as they look at it, or even feel it? There was I want to stop sharing for a second because I want to bring up an image, and I want to make sure I grab the right image here. And I will show some examples of like a master plan, what we mean by that. What even does that mean, right? So let's see. There's a local, actually, I guess he's kind of an artist, I would say. But I actually was really fortunate to work with this gentleman. He's Michael Cantino. He developed a way to take art pieces that were at the Portland Art Museum and translate them into tactile examples of the art. So there's examples here you see on the table. And these were actual paintings or drawings that were on the wall for, visitors such as me that can see them. But he translated them into 3D objects and they're tactile. So, and they have braille on them. And the idea was that someone could visualize by, being able to feel this thing, what the art piece was or what it meant. So again, thinking about how would someone navigate this site that's maybe on a concrete sidewalk, walking through or going on this trail, interpret what's going on if they can't see, if they use a cane or have low vision. So again, that gets a bit more into as we get further into individual projects, but kind of just trying to give you an introduction into this. All right, let me go back to this. I'll walk through a little bit more of this. Again, this is a very dense PDF here, so there's a lot to consider and look at. Okay, so some more examples that are in here, some more site stuff. Signage even, recreating signs that you see out, one way stop. Like, okay, that might be great for some users, but what about for everyone? How do we communicate this? And then just like tactile, right? You see these all over the place, these yellow tactile domes. There's different variations of those. Why? Where did it come from? Again, tactile maps. If you're having someone visit the site, where might that be on the site located so that someone who starts off their journey, across this 105 acres, where might something like this be? Do you have one? Do you have many? Again, this could be a sort of a project someone could take on as we go into the individual. Again, there's quite a few examples in here. We've used this before for other projects, and there's some TED Talks. Very interesting, just seeing like and hearing from folks that have gone through this and sort of like design and what it's done for them, their careers, their experience just going through this woman here, going through an airport, the challenges that she faces. Again, we talked about sort of they built this tank like, oh, this is great. We're going to have this tank for Cormy. We're going to have this rehabilitation thing. It's so wonderful. Yes, it is. But man, you see a little kid, they can't see over it. Just that simple little thing that would help, a larger group have a better experience. This gentleman, architect in San Francisco, he just happened to go blind because of an experience he had, a health issue, but he's still practicing since 2008. So again, there's some videos in here to kind of just take a look at. I highly encourage it. Please do. I think that's about all. Yeah, again, there's a lot here. And then even more stuff, even more links, and some basics of ADA. So if you're not quite sure, this is a good reference. So just talking about some of the ramps and landings and just basic things, components of ADA for design. Okay. All right, let me stop here and I'll just show a quick couple examples. Like you're going to see something in the materials that the other school did, which is fine. But again, we do not have to follow anything that they have done. So I don't want any of you to think that just because you see some sort of graphic where they might show a road or they might show a trail, that means it has to be there. It does not. And I've even told the folks at WCNC that nothing is really sacred. There are a few things, again, that I think the group brought up, like the tank that they built, like that's important. But again, your SMEs can help you determine like what are the things that we probably shouldn't touch or at least enhance or might suggest enhancing as we get through this sort of group project. All right, so let's see. I've just pulled a few examples, nothing magical here, but let me share my screen again, and then we'll take some questions here in a few minutes. Okay, so for example, this is sort of it's a large scale, right? You can see that this plan here, this illustration is zoomed way out. Sort of the same idea. You're zooming way out. So you're not going to see what the individual sort of design or the building or the thing is. Okay, it's more about notating, or in this case, they created like a symbol, right? And then they might, let's say on another page, define what that symbol means. For example, I don't know what this one is, but maybe that's for a garden. And they might have, again, a slide or at least a legend that tells you what that's about. Oh, it's a garden area. Okay, what does it look like? We don't know yet because, again, you were just doing this group project to sort of identify where things land on the site. What's that list of stuff and where does it go? So this is about as designy as you get. All right, let me show another couple of ones here. Here's one, and I picked a couple of these because this is a firm I used to work at, so I kind of know their website. I can bounce around it. Those of you who had me before know this website probably. I refer to it a decent bit, but even something like this, right? This is again zoomed out. It illustrates like some trails or something here in white, just some line work, maybe where there's some restoration that's been done. And again, there's notes. Overlook Plaza. Don't know what that is yet, but it's an overlook. Your group might consider, where do we want to put bird blinds? What's a bird blind? Well, look it up. Why might we do that? Where could we place these? It might just be a dot on this illustration, and that's it. That's all you're doing at this point. But you as collectively as a group need to figure out what that is and where it goes. And again, what's that list of stuff that is then represented in a plan like this? Here's another one. This is using like Google Earth. We would do this a lot. You just kind of take this and again, zoom out and just some basic stuff. I'd say this is probably a little bit more designy, but you don't exactly know what this is. It calls it out. You don't exactly know everything about this. There's like parking or things, but this is about the level of design that you're getting to, calling out different areas, showing where maybe some trails or circulation or roads go, and that's about it. Okay. So again, this is very high level, sort of master plan, site design, sort of layout. And as you walk through your slide deck, you should be telling us what's the use of these things? What's the list of stuff you're going to put in there? How do they, again, educational things that they might do? What are some needs for the site? So all those kind of like inventory of things. Okay. All right. That was a whole lot that we dumped out there. Dare I say, are there any questions?
I have a question.
Okay,
They
let's try to answer it.
all right. So they mentioned they have summer camps where students would learn in the uh wildlife center. Do they have somewhere where the students stay, or do the students stay out of the vicinity right now?
Any of the SMEs, if you want to answer that, or I can.
Sure. They do not stay on the property currently, and they do not have plans right now to make facilities to stay there. They are just there for the day.
Okay.
But are they open to that in the future? What was it,
Mhm.
Lisa?
Um, I think they said they'd be open to it, but they didn't have any near future plans for it. I don't know. Did anyone
Okay.
else get anything from that?
Yeah, it would be much farther down the road. But they do want to, so right now they do 3 weeks of day camps. Each age group gets 1 week there, and they would like to be able to add more. They just don't have the facility yet to handle more kids or more camps.
So
And the
I
kids are
just
really
want to,
young. Sorry.
yeah, and I just want to add to that. So to kind of answer your question a little bit more, it might be something that you say, hey, as a group, we decide that maybe this area, within the property, that could be there for a future thing, right? And maybe you outline that and just say that. But I don't think it's sort of off the table, but again, it would be sort of a future thing. So you got to think about what is there now? What do they have out there now? What are kind of more their immediate needs? Which again, I think that list will help you that the group put together. But then considering down the road, what do they do? What do they need to actually do that? And yeah, that maybe that's something an individual project might be later on. But again, think about where that might be placed on the site for future use, knowing that it's not an immediate thing. So maybe it's not right next to where they want to put, you might consider, well, we need to have, a place to park these buses that are coming. Well, we don't want to plan to put a building there in 10 years, right? We want to think about where it might go somewhere else. So, okay, who else? Oh, was that good, or did you have another one?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Good. That's good. Yeah. Thank you. And I have another one. How much parking do they require? Like they would need, like what are they like looking at?
They didn't say exactly how much they required.
Yeah, I would also hesitate. They don't want like a parking lot. They don't want like 30 cars to be able to gather in a square space. So it would be maybe more like clusters along the road. They're not looking for like a paved asphalt area.
They just want
And I think,
spaces.
yeah, and I think the other thing is once you kind of get familiar more with the site and what they have out there, and the group mentioned like there's like emergencies, right? Someone's got to pull up and get something out, an animal out of out of a vehicle or something. That's a different sort of location or use on the site than, let's say, a day camp van bringing 15 kids, right? That's going to park somewhere else. There's also the staff. So knowing how many staff are out there, I think hopefully there's some notes on that, or your SME should be able to answer that for you. So they've got volunteers. Where do they park? If there are going to be, let's say, smaller gravel parking areas along the road, along their property, so that people aren't cluttering the actual facility, where does that go, right? So yes, there is sort of parking, but then there's like in and out. There's maybe all day, maybe there's only part of the day. Again, so there's I think that number and that location is going to depend on what people are actually there and what they're doing.
Can I also add that they mentioned um, there are trees that they wouldn't mind sacrificing for this. They don't want to clear cut the place, but near the visitor center, there's a bank of trees that they said they wouldn't miss. They would sacrifice a couple because some of them aren't even native. But just know that you could move some vegetation around for that, is what they said,
Yeah,
right?
and that might be good for sort of that future education thing that you were bringing up and asking about, right? Like maybe that's something, or I don't know, who knows, right?
All right, thank you.
Sure, good questions. Who else? Clancy, you got your hand up, looks like.
Yes. So with the materiality, is I going back to what you were saying about like we're designing for the client, right? We want to make sure that we're doing what they want to do. So are we limited by those materials, or are we trying to stay economic? I mean, if you can I don't know if you can guys can expand a little bit on the materiality, maybe.
Yeah, I would say it needs to be economic. They are on purely donations and federal funding, by state or federal. So they don't have a ginormous budget. So everything that they do budget is with intention. So, the other thing is like for Cormie's enclosure, it was all staff. There was no contractor, there was no construction crew, there was no one pouring the concrete, there was no one setting up the glass. Um, and so because of that too, I think is where like they didn't realize kids not being able to fully see Cormy because that just, isn't part of their, they're not designers. This is a,
They're making it safe for him
for the
versus
animal, yeah, and
okay.
kind of just didn't think about that. So like they really do want to be able to purchase items from Home Depot or Lowe's or a local resource and be able to reuse it. Like if for some reason they need to repurpose, corrugated
So,
metal, they
so
can
maybe
do that.
even like I mean we've talked about it in our studio like deployable things where it's like it's changing throughout whether it's during the day it's used for this and then it's able to be reused for X, Y, and Z, right? You know, that kind of thing.
Totally.
Yeah, and I think I would say, Clancy, I think your question applies a bit more to the individual and get to the individual project. However, it's not it's not out of the realm to think about what materials could they use or pour on site. So two examples. They do have a concrete mixer. They have a small little individual concrete mixer that they've used to sometimes use for repair or fence posts or concrete and just put it in the ground. So there is that. There's also, as Lisa mentioned, there's an area of trees that maybe they could get rid of. So how could they use, let's say, a small, if any of you've seen them, small chainsaw mills that actually you just need a chainsaw. You can guide along a log and cut your own wood out. So if they are able to do that and actually cut things, maybe there's materials actually on site. Now, Does that mean you're designing the, you know, the little building to house all that stuff? Not yet. Maybe it's something you think about as an individual project though, right? And I love the fact that you're already, that in your students you're talking about this already. That's great because again, how can we reuse materials? How can they be used for multiple purposes? How can they serve one material serve multiple purposes? How could those simple things be done? So that's great. Chris, go ahead.
Um, hey, will anyone from the WCNC be invited to the April 10th presentations?
Yes, great question. And thank you for reminding me. There are 4 to 5 staff that said that they are available at any, they will make themselves available at any time and for any studio. So we can have at least one get online or, well, obviously online. So somehow you'll have to incorporate having one of them available or have them be able to, let's say, attend the actual presentation. That's why at least this first one, we've set it up as like a slide deck so that it can be digitally shown, on a platform just like this. But yes, they are available. They're excited. They do want to see the work. They do want to participate. They do want to give feedback. As much as they can be invited, they would love to do it.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows too, I mean, I think, and someone from the group correct me, but there's only 3 full-time people that work for this whole facility. Is that, or is it 2?
It's 2
2.
because Melissa's a part-timer, even though she's
Yeah.
the trainer.
Mm.
So, and I think there's only 6 employees total.
Yeah. So they do rely again on volunteers and things and neighbors to kind of help them out. Question?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. So on the slide, it says that there were 8 employees and 35 volunteers. Are they lodging on the site or do they just go to the site every day?
They go to the site.
Yeah,
Okay.
and no one stays overnight,
Okay.
unless it was very animal specific and case by case. So no one's there at night. Everyone goes home.
Okay. And the other question that I have pertains more to the projects. Can we move the buildings or are they like they're there? We can't move them.
I think you can identify now. I think there are ones that are, I would say, I'm going to use the word sacred, and I don't mean that eventually or at some point they might rebuild them. But like for instance, they use their. You'll see in some of the photos where they have their. It's like meeting room, bathroom, office, gift shop, and it's an old house, and that they're not sure how it came to be. They're not sure who built it. It kind of sort of works. They had to get an electrician, and like there's all this stuff. Like that houses a lot of different things that eventually they would probably be okay with losing. Now, let's say the tank that we've been kind of talking about again. You'll see that we wouldn't want to do anything with that, right? Like that's I would say probably sacred because they built that. It's specific for that bird, or at least one bird, maybe 2. They're not looking to expand it. That's something that really works, and they've done it well. But there are things that you're going to find that could be replaced at some point. So if you as a group decide that, okay, it's here now, but in future, because if you think about, like, especially when you're thinking about the future, right? They've got to operate now, right? They've got to keep kind of what's in place now just to function. So if you say, okay, as a group, we think that eventually they could take this and move it or rebuild it here. They could build that while they still function in the one, right? The existing one. So I don't think it's far off to suggest that these types of things could be built in other places. But I'll just put this out there. When you think about this as a group, it's not only today, it's not only 5 years, it's only 10 years, it's 2030, right? Like, how do you push this out? Because again, they are relying on funding. And any of you out there that know about federal grants, unfortunately, they've dried up a bit. So that's becoming harder. And so they're relying on less and less to get by. Hopefully that will change someday soon. But at the moment, they have to build in increment steps. So I think your question is it's not a yes or no. It's more of a it depends and kind of what you're looking at. But again, I think there are definitely things that they would like to replace eventually. They're just not quite sure. The money is a big deal. But if they had the money, sure, let's do it. We would, and you can suggest as a group, hey, we think you should put it here based on the circulation and this use and this, that, and the other.
So I kind of have a third question. Do we know which buildings are considered sacred? Is it just the enclosures or the enclosures plus the visitor center?
Um, I'll pipe in, sorry. Honestly, at the moment in the near future, they're really not looking to do anything to the buildings. That's not a priority. So that being said, like if it's implemented in a long-term plan, they probably are open to whatever. But Cormie's enclosure is definitely kind of hands off. They would like to repurpose the barn, but they still want to keep the barn. So if they could figure out a way to use it for something else, they talk, and we have it in our notes. They're talking about adding some aquatic pools in there to add more aquatic birds. But as far as like the clinic, they don't really need much on the building itself. It's more to do with what's around and outside the clinic. Um, and the only other thing that would be like, it's in the notes too, so I apologize if I keep referring to it. They would like to do one day an interpretive center where guests can go in and kind of see this informational hub to kind of get them out of the what's currently used as the visitor center.
I just want to chime in and say something really quickly. The visitor center and the office, the entrance is old and rotting and slippery, and the stairs are giving way, and it's like it is kind of a priority there to redo that front entrance, I think, because it's like not safe. And that is part of their main building. So I guess that would be considered an update to that building, or as Professor Crante said, you could build something new while using that old one, maybe if you were so inclined. But I do know there are safety issues with that current building that need to be addressed in terms of the entrance.
Yeah, and I think again, I think for all of you, as you get into more looking at the photos and talking with your SME of your in your studio, it's going to really help see it once you kind of start to see it and kind of go, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. There's that barn like thing. Is that the thing that you're talking about? Like you'll kind of start to put it together a little bit more. So as a group, you make sure that you're really diving into these things and getting and seeing these resources. Let's see. Let's see, Maya.
Yeah, so for the model, I have a question. So would you, since we're not designing the buildings, do you want us to make like a mass model and then basically just have those universal designs? So like if we need a ramp, we would make a ramp like by the building, or how would that work?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question. I think when you are all considering the scale of this thing, you're not going to have a whole lot of detail. You're really not, right? Like, one of these, let's say they're, as I mentioned, kind of their gathering office, gift shop, whatever space, it's going to be probably pretty small. So you're not going to see a whole lot of detail there. So I think, again, work with your instructors to see like what kind of scale this is going to be and what the reality of those facilities or trails or roads are actually going to come out to. I could see all of you considering, maybe we use a certain material for a road. We might use a certain material, a different one, slightly different color or something for trails or something else, right? So these things are going to be pretty small by the time you start to actually build this thing up. And you might consider color. You might consider like maybe I don't know, maybe the facilities or the buildings are certain colors for certain reasons. Maybe that coordinates with a legend that you have on the model. Again, talk to your instructors about how to kind of lay this thing out. Good question though. It's a good one. Appreciate that. Myra, question.
Hello, yes. So I was thinking a little bit about what Chelsea said, or I feel like I'm giving it a lot of like importance to that word. But I know that she mentioned that at the place we're gonna be working at, they're not looking exactly for like changes. They're looking to like repurpose of the areas. So my concern is that basically our approach should be mostly about like repurposing the existing buildings, like not bringing them down and building something new. Like we're only adding aspects of universal design while remaining with what we got. Or am I
Not
just like,
exactly. Well, okay. This is going to be the challenging part. So again, when you're looking at these things, think about circulation. Think about, and we can talk more in the studio, but again, thinking about circulation, users, where are they going? Where are they going to be? Where do they get to? What access they get to and from what buildings? And yes, at the immediate sort of, let's say first couple, let's say from now until like, I don't know, what year are we in? 26, like 28 or 29. Are they going to knock down something and rebuild it? Probably not. But that doesn't mean that as a group, you might say, hey, here's a spot you could put this thing in 10 to 15 years. Plan for this thing to 10 to 15 years because you got to raise the money to get there to get to this thing, right? And then you might think as a group, hey, you're trying to get this thing in 10 to 15 years. What about the community or local people that we might tap into to help them raise some funds? What are events or things we might tap into to kind of help them get there? That could be part of your slides. Again, thinking about and zooming out about how to help this place accomplish some of these things that you're trying to do in a near term and even long term. So yeah, it's not that you can't, you have to say, oh, we have to reuse this thing. We have to, you can't knock it down. It's just that what's the timing of this stuff? Right. So think and talking to your instructors and think about like phasing, right? Like that's what we would call phasing. 5 to 10 year plan. We're going to do this. They have a plan for this summer, right? Like I was corrected. I didn't realize that that one structure they're going to build this summer, right? I didn't hear that. I didn't know about that. I assumed that was like future. It's not like, but that's kind of the scope of what they can do, right? It's like, hey, we can do this summer. It's on the list and we need it. Why? Probably they're going to, and someone from the group can correct me, but they might be getting material from somebody. Well, all right, now we got this. We got to use it for something. It's hard for them to sort of zoom out and say, what can we do 10 to 15 years, 20, 30 years from now? How do we develop this thing over time? Right? We look at it as designers and go, hey, here's this big, huge plan you can do and all this really cool, fun stuff. And then they go, well, how much is it going to cost us? Right. And then that's the thing is like, how do you help them think about this thing in a long-term vision? Yes, there's immediate things that some of you might gravitate toward for an individual project. And some of you might say, well, yeah, I'm really curious about that barn. What could I do with that? How could I help them brand that thing? How could I help them get some, someone to, I don't know, sponsor a bird? I just went to the Rice Museum, which is it's not about rice, by the way. It's a last name, but they have a lot of different types of rocks, right? All these different geodes and all these things, and people sponsor them for a couple $100. You can say, oh, so and so sponsors this geode. Look at this cool thing, right? And you learn about it and blah blah blah. I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of sponsorship thing. You could again that could be in your slide deck. Are you going to actually make the website for them and do all? No, you're not. But again, it's the idea of, hey, you need this thing that we identified in 15, 20 years. Maybe here's a way to kind of help get there. That's basically what you're doing.
Gotcha. So it goes like, of course it's design, but it goes beyond design. It's more of like growth of the site.
Well, and I hope what you all get out of this is that that's the backbone to even doing the project, right? That's sort of the background that helps support a project that you might help with. And I've been involved in things like this, and I'm sure some of the other instructors have been as well, where you might, I did a small little park plan for the town of Pendleton here in Oregon. They had a little bit of money to be able to get a designer to do a couple different schemes for them for a park. What did they do with that? They used that to apply for a grant to get the money to actually build a park. Does it mean they did exactly the design? I don't know. Probably not. But the idea says, hey, we've got a little bit of money that we got a little seed money, and we want to try to like get this thing actually done, right? So again, you're thinking about stuff in a long-term kind of visionary thing.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Sure. Markle, that if I said that right, hopefully I did. Markel, sorry, my apologies. Good question. Not a dumb question at all. I think what you'll see on the graphics and some of the information that the group has, you'll get a general sense of it. There are some other ways that we can figure that out. If you're looking for something more detailed, but there is some information there on some of the drawings that you'll see that will have that kind of dimension thing. I think for right now, though, as you look at it again as a group, you can sort of at least notate and kind of provide like a cube or something like that on the model, like very simple types of things that will then identify that stuff. But the other thing I would say is as we get into the individual stuff, if you're thinking about, well, they need, I don't know, let's say they need a bathroom or something along this trail or a bird blind, right? Like they don't have that. They don't know what that is. Or they know what that is. They don't have it, right? They don't know what size it should be or maybe where it could be located, right? So you can kind of come up with that size. If there's something in particular, I'm sure we can get it. If there's something that's really missing that you need, I'm sure we can find out and get it for anyone in the groups. Good question though. Not a dumb question at all. No questions are dumb. Anything else? Chris, Naveed, Arsalan, David, anything coming to mind that you think? I mean, obviously, let me know if there's something you think we're missing as the groups get into it a bit more. But just let me know.
Yeah, we'll do. Excited to see what these guys come up with.
All right. Okay. Well, yes, Billy.
Um, so I wanted to know, are we deciding the groups or have they already been made?
Well, at least for my class, and I would think the other instructors, I'm actually creating the groups. They have been made for everybody. Chris, are you doing the same?
Yep, I just posted the group announcement on Canvas about 45 minutes before this meeting started. So my section, check out Canvas.
I'll let mine know during class when we meet after this. I'm not sure about. Oh, go ahead.
And I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna make the groups.
Okay.
Yeah, in my section, they already grouped up, so
You're ahead of it. Nice.
a bit.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Adriana.
I just want to make sure I understand. But so like for the group portion of it, it's more so just understanding like the layout of everything and maybe like the solutions to some of these problems that like the wildlife area is wanting versus like our singular portion or like the one that we just do on our own. That's more like material wise, like we get more into that detail of it, or what's like the difference between the two?
Correct. Just what you said is absolutely right. This first part again is more like you just said it, more group, right? We're kind of zoomed out, going big picture. Like where these things go? What's the list of things that we think they need? You might make a list that says, "Hey, we think maybe you do these next 4 years or something. Here's a 20-year thing that of a list of things that maybe you could grow to, and where might they be, right? How do you represent that on a big, large scale plan? So yeah, it's really zoomed out. When we get into the individual thing, that's definitely diving more into like materials, the structure, again, thinking about what, these folks they're not builders, they're not contractors. So how do we make things simple and easy for them to be able to replace, repair, build new, build more, bring things actually onto the